Good morning. My name is David, and today I'm running a game of Fellowship by Jacob Randolph. Fellowship is a Powered by the Apocalypse game. It is inspired by kind of high fantasy fiction. In particular, certainly in terms of its sort of trade dress, it's very inspired by Lord of the Rings, but also kind of a lot of other high fantasy that sort of fits that sort of questing mode. We are playing today using one of the supplemental books called In Rebellion, which introduces an overarching empire and the scrappy rebels fighting against it. So this kind of diverts the game into a bit more of a sort of Star Wars Avatar mode. We're running as well with a couple of minor hacks and tonal setting things of our own devising today as well. Primarily, we are specifically running a game that is focused on youth characters, sort of teenage characters. Again, very much in the mode of things like Avatar, Dragon Prince, She-Ra, all that kind of stuff. And that's the sort of tone and approach we're taking to this game today. This game is going to be sort of run over the course of the next 3 months, all being well. And we had our first sort of session 0 last week, where we set up most of our characters and had a bit of a discussion about the world. So today we are going to pick up, detail a few last bits about our rebellion, learn a little bit more about each of our characters, and then we will get started in some actual play, which we'll come on to in a moment. But before we do that, I'm just going to ask each of my players to introduce themselves and their character. Just tell us a brief bit about your character, and then we'll get into the more in-depth questions in a moment. So I think we'll go as ever in character keeper order. So Stephen, if we can start with you, please.
Yeah, I'm Steven, he, him, and unlike how this labels me from another game, I am playing Ossian, he, him, the exile, former prince of the Empire of the Moon. Do we have a name? Empire of the Moon.
I think it was the Empire of the Empire of the Shadowed Moon. I think it was, yeah.
Shadowed Moon, that's it. Almost there. That's why I'm in exile. But yeah, I am possessed of wild magic that manifests as me taking on a form of elemental light as a result, and because also there isn't much history of wild magic in the bloodline and the Imperial bloodline, it raised some awkward questions about my parentage as well. I took off into the night and have fled, and have picked up a few companions along the way who I am responsible for, even if they don't think I am.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And next, we will go to Jamie, I believe.
Great. Hi, Jamie. Jamie here. They, them pronouns, please. I'm playing Sabila, who also goes by they, them pronouns. Sabila is a dragon. In particular, they are a hatchling, a newborn. They don't actually know a lot about, because we've connected the dragons here to the moon, and through moonlight energy and through the shenanigans of the Empire, things have happened and the dragons are no longer as powerful as they used to be. Sabila is the first true dragon that was born in this generation, and they look like they're about 12 to 14 years old, but real dragon age, I don't know, it's kind of tricky. Our other character, our other character, Kalliban, knows more about myself than I do, I think, at this point. And let's see. Also, they have access to, aside from fire, they also use poison. They're a fire eater, and sometimes they talk to a dragon spirit who is actually their mother who passed away. I realize that I have to use wisdom to talk to them, and I have a -1 to wisdom, so that's going to be fun. But that's about it. Oh, I forgot. I'm also like, I tend to argue with everybody, but I love and protect everybody. So Phaethon and I are like in love in my eyes. And Ossian is my older brother. So
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah, so next we will have Alex, if you'd like to introduce yourself and your character.
Hi, I'm Alex. He, him, or they, them. Pronouns are fine. I am playing the Harbinger, Phaethon. He, him. He is a grumpy child. A renegade from his people because the Harbingers are either like servants of the Empire or at like their interests align. The Empire's interests align with theirs. It's not clear. But the Harbingers are baddies, and Phaethon isn't about that life. He has access to a lot of powerful magic that he's likely to be pretty bad at using. And let's see. He knows of a doom that awaits Sabila, but cannot bring himself to tell them about it. He has a little companion that's an eyeball with bat wings. Just kind of hangs around. It's just a little guy. He's like 14 or 15. Phaethon, not the eye bat. Yeah, I think that's about it. He's got a cool sword that is also like very dangerous to use.
Excellent. Perfect. And last but not least, Dave, if you'd like to introduce yourself and your character.
So hello everybody, I'm Dave Walker. I'm he, him, but I am playing Kalliban, the Moon Prince, they, them, one of the 5 princes of the moon who serve the Empire. I am here for one purpose and one purpose alone: to steal back my brother from the vile actions of the dragon and the Harbinger, who have stolen my brother and corrupted their will. Death to them both.
responsible for you too, Kalliban.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Yes. So I will, first things first, actually, I will just quickly go over our safety tools. So we will be running with a couple of safety tools today. Primarily, we've sort of already had a discussion about lines and veils last time. We've got that recorded in the tab in our character keeper, so do feel free to check that out for my players so they can refresh themselves on those. If you want to add anything onto there at any point, feel free to do so. It's a living document. All I do ask is that if you are like adding something onto there during play, if you can just like you don't have to like announce it to the chat, but if you can just like send me a message so I know to check in, just because otherwise I know I mentioned this last time. There's so much stuff with this game, and I'm likely to be very distracted looking at other screens. So, just give me a heads up. Lines are obviously things we will not. Lines are obviously things that we won't deal with at all in the game. They're sort of outside the remit of what we want to explore. Veils are things that can come up. But that we don't want to go into any sort of detail on. We'll just kind of draw a veil over them, have them happen off screen, that sort of thing. There's also a couple of subjects we've just where if we can just, if you want to make those part of a scene, if we can just have a quick out of character chat first, that's cool. As I say, I think I will be mentioning others in it, but honestly, I think one of the best safety tool is just to make sure that you know, you have enthusiastic consent for what you're doing in the game, and make sure everyone's cool with it in the first place. So the yeah, the other safety tools we will be using the X card, which should be familiar, hopefully, to everyone. It's quite a simple tool. If at any point you want to invoke the X card, you can either just say, I'd like to X card that. You can put something in the chat at the side there. You can, you know, do some sort of holding your hands up in front of the screen in an X formation. That's a bit more difficult for me because I've got a mic in front of me that's difficult to navigate. So yeah, that's invoking the X card. Once the X card's been invoked, basically what that means is we'll stop dealing with a particular subject matter or topic or whatever it may be that you wish to X card. And that can be anything. It might be a character's name. It might be yeah, you know, so some particular content. It may be just something that's like a description of something that you feel is like tonally off and just isn't in keeping with the sort of spirit of the game we're going for. Anything like that is fine. I may ask you to explain, not explain. I may ask you to say what it is that you're X-carding, if it's not like immediately obvious from context. But I won't ask you to justify why you're X-carding it. The fact that you have X-carded it is enough. We will just put that down. We'll move on. If you do get X-carded, you know, it's no personal judgment, unless it's because you were being a dick. But just you know, we'll just sort of move on. There's no need to sort of like apologize, whatever it is. We just, you know, these things happen. We'll also be using script change. Script change is a bit more of a nuanced tool. This works kind of like a remote control command style. So the most relevant commands that we have for it are first and foremost pause. You can just call pause at any moment, and we'll just take a minute out. This can be used. It might be because you've got to go and answer the door, you know, or something like that, or you've just got a phone call. This can be. It might be that a scene's getting quite intense, and you just want to like take a moment to like breathe before continuing on with it. Or it might be that there's something else that you want to have a discussion about out of character. So, you know, it might be that there's you have concerns that a scene might be going down a certain route that you're not happy with, and you want to just kind of have an open conversation about that first. Conversely, it might be to say, I think I'd quite like to do this, but I'm aware that might put other people in a uncomfortable position. Is it okay? Anything like that is good. So yeah, it's a very, very you know, flexible tool. Pause. It's basically just to signify that we just need to take a moment to have a chat as players amongst ourselves, and break away from the actual action of the game itself. There is fast forward. Fast forward is basically used to just say, can we just skip over this thing? It might be again, it might be something where it's essentially like drawing down an ad hoc file. It's like, okay, I don't, you know, I know that we've just had you know, someone's been injured and there's first aid being done on them, but I don't want a graphic description of like you know, all the procedures involved. Can we just get to the point where they have been healed? Or it might be you know, if a scene, as I'm sure as everyone's experienced before, sometimes where you just get a scene or a conversation where it's just kind of looping back around in itself without any resolution, and it might be like, can we just move on to the point where something happens or where we reach a decision rather than circling back and forwards. So that's fast forward. There's rewind, which can be used to basically either to step back and say, actually, I don't like, you know, I don't like the way this has gone. Can we change it slightly? I think, or I realized when I said that it came across as more aggressive than I intended to. Can I rephrase it? That sort of thing. Yeah, basically anything where you just want to take, like, step us back a moment and then carry on forwards again, just to make some sort of course corrections or what have you. Last one that is likely to come up, I think, or is useful to come up, is the frame by frame, which is basically just an indicator that we want to take a scene slowly, and with frequent check-ins. This again might be if we're dealing with any particularly like sensitive content. We just want to make absolutely sure that everyone's on board with it. It's just to kind of that go slow approach. So that's what that's there for. So yeah, I think that's covers it. There's a couple of other commands, but I don't feel they're always as relevant. But actually, I don't think I have shared the document, but I'll have them for next time. So that's our safety tools. Just having said all of that, in terms of our tone and content, as I said, we are kind of aiming for that, like, like I said, Avatar, She-Ra type things. I'm not envisaging us getting into any like seriously squicky territory here, but there's obviously we're never entirely sure what's going to come up or what's going to feel uncomfortable in the moment. So just to get everyone on board with that. So that said, what I'm going to do is we'll kind of just go. I'll have a couple. We'll talk a little bit about the rebellion itself, and then we'll talk about the I'll just get a couple more details about your characters and their backgrounds. That'll probably take us up to the hour or just past, where we'll take our first break. Then we'll come back and we'll get into some play. So just to kind of recap over what the state of the Empire, and I have, as I just mentioned, I've added in a new Empire tab, which is fairly bare bones at the minute, but I've got some initial notes in there. So again, to kind of draw back the curtain a little bit, the way the Empire works, just so you all know what you're interacting with, is there are a number of leaders in the Empire who are sort of specific named NPCs that have specific powers and stuff like that. They will obviously they will be doing their own thing in the Empire, and you will on occasion come into contact with them, come to blows with them, so on and so forth. There are also of these, one of them is the top dog. In that case, this is our Empress. I will introduce those properly in a moment. The top dog is obviously the person who is in charge. They are the most powerful of their peers. If ever the top dog is taken out, one of the other leaders will move into that power vacuum and take on that position. And what this essentially means is that the Empire is bigger than any one person. This is the biggest sort of distinction between this and regular fellowship. In regular fellowship, obviously you have the big bad, you have the overlord who is in charge, and sort of taking them out is the victory condition. In Rebellion, there are the individual leaders may be less powerful, but there are more of them, and there can be more as the story progresses. There are also the next bit is there are some locations. These are known as sources of power. They have special effects on the Empire as a whole whilst they're still in operation. They again, you'll be aware of these places in general, but not necessarily the specifics of them. And yeah, so the Empire has a number of moves that are based in these sources of power. So the three moves, these are things that you are aware of. because their effects are felt throughout the empire. The other things, the sort of the specific strengths and weaknesses of the individual locations or of the leaders themselves have to be kind of listed in play. But the empire moves that the empire is starting with are untitled band of mercenaries, which means that the organization is working for the empire, with usually one threat per squad of basic soldiers. What the organization is essentially one of the threat types in the game, it's kind of represents your sort of your named villain type characters. They're all individually skilled people who have their own particular strengths and weaknesses, rather than just being the rank and file soldiers. So you'll be seeing some of these people around as you fight the empire. The next one is Command Center. This one means that when I advance my plans, which we'll get onto later, it's not immediately important, I advance 2 of them instead of just 1 of them, and I can have up to 3 plans active rather than 2. Basically, this just means that I am going to be able to ramp things up for you a little bit faster and create more threats for you to face, because it seemed fitting for a large empire such as the one we're dealing with. The last one we have is the detection array, which basically means that the empire is able to detect the use of magic when it's used around the world, or around the empire. So you'll have that kind of under the eyes of surveillance type thing going on while you're dealing with this.
David, is that all magic, or just the moon and the night magic, or is it?
We'll probably play it by ear a bit, but yeah, it's broadly speaking, it's all magic. So what we discussed last time about the empire, it's a very old empire, sort of like has existed since time immemorial type thing, and it's, as mentioned, it's known as the empire of the shadowed moon, or the moonless empire, colloquially. The current ruler is Penumbral Empress Aurelia III. She is a powerful individual in every sense of the word, a skilled politician, a gifted swordswoman, and a powerful sorcerer as well. She is, as I say, she is the Empress. She rules the empire, and that's sort of her in very broad strokes. The other leader we have is she is the sort of part of the ruling family, and the kind of the backstory to the ruling family of the empire is that they, in the distant past, the empire brought down the Selene, the goddess of the moon, and in some way bound her power to their bloodline. As a result, the moon no longer shines in the sky, but the imperial bloodline is magically powerful, and has been able to maintain control of the empire for, as I say, definitely centuries, possibly even millennia. Depending on how much faith you place in the imperial histories. In terms of the immediate, immediate tone and feel of the empire as a whole, recently the Empress has been, recently the Empire has been looking to expand its borders again. Has been pushing into some of there will be some kind of loosely defined, foreign lands and colonial holdings sort of around the edge of the empire. We can detail those in more detail should they come into play. And the overall tenor of the empire is it's becoming more controlled and more locked down. As I say, this empire has lasted for many generations, for many centuries, but there is increasingly a drive towards absolutism and sort of homogeneity within the empire itself. What about probably slowly and over time? I mean, it's not certainly not like an overnight thing that's happened, but it's been increasingly the case. And as this sort of central power is being tightened, more people are starting to break away and join rebellious factions, which we'll discuss in a moment. The other important NPCs that we have are the Archmagister Gilded Swan, who is master of the Harbingers, I will check in properly about this in a moment with you, Alex. But currently, I'm going with the tentative name of the Ordo Noctis, who they are magic users, powerful magic users whose magic can kind of shape the world to an extent. They are in a position of power within the empire, whilst not necessarily being an official arm of the government, but they are a very, very powerful group. And we know from discussion that they actually predate the empire in its current incarnation, and it was due to their aid that the first emperor was able to bring down the goddess Selene in the first place. The final leader I will introduce from now is the Legate Drusilla Corax. She is a military commander who has been specifically tasked with rooting out the rebellion. She has a kind of broad brief to deal with that, and she is currently operating out of Fort Endeavour, which is near the, or at least in the vicinity of the rebel heartland. We'll detail a bit more about that in a moment. The other important locations are the Umbra, which is the Imperial capital itself. Umbra, I imagine, this is my sort of in my mind's eye, I'm seeing that kind of almost like a blend between like kind of classical buildings, lots of like columns and that sort of thing, but sort of blended with an almost like Art Deco sensibility. So we've got that kind of semi-modern feel to it. It's a big city, a proper full-on metropolis, and that is the center of the empire, obviously, if not physically, definitely, spiritually, politically, and militarily. Yes, we also have the High Court of the Ordo Noctis, which is where the Harbingers operate from. It's this. I'm imagining some sort of like remote fortress type, fortress temple thing somewhere off the beaten track, I would say. And finally, the Autumn Palace, which is is one of the major imperial palaces, actually within the imperial capital. So that's kind of how the Empire looks. With all that said, we'll now come round to our rebels. And so if we can look at the Rebellion tab in the Character Keeper, I will very briefly go over what the Rebellion entails. There's all the details should be on there for how it works anyway. But I'll just do a quick overview. So the Rebellion is defined by 3 stats. These are Force, Intel, and Health. So by default, each of these has a maximum of 6 and starts off at 2. And that's the same for all 3. So Intel, Force represents the military might of the Rebellion, and you can spend Force to essentially have backup from the Rebellion to deal with threats, broadly speaking. You can increase the Rebellion's force by basically bringing military supplies to the Rebellion and donating them. As I said, that can take you up to a maximum of 6, though there are choices that can be made later on that give you a higher maximum, and that can increase the maximum. Intel represents what information sources the Rebellion has on how the Empire works, and you can spend Intel in much the same way to reveal weaknesses and details about the Empire. Works in exactly the same way. Starts at 2, can go up to 6. It goes up whenever you bring plans, information, or captives to the Rebellion. And finally, health. This works a little bit differently in that you don't spend health ever, but you whenever the Empire launches an attack against the Rebellion, it will do health damage. Also, sometimes if it might be the cost of a move or something like that. If you're like bringing backup along with you on the mission, that might put some of the Rebellion's health at risk. You raise the health of the Rebellion by bringing companions to the Rebellion and getting them to join, and that will increase the health. It should also be noted that when you increase the health of the Rebellion, it also increases its force and its intel by 1 as a sort of a side benefit. Obviously, if the Rebellion's health drops to 0, it's in a bad state, and if it has to lose health when its health is at 0, then the Rebellion collapses. And things will be going badly by that point. So those are the 3 core stats, and that's broadly how they work. There's a couple of choices then to make, which are broadly the Rebellion will have an agenda. There are 3 of these, and they're on the list there. So the 3 agendas are to institute anarchy, which is to destroy all systems of power, regardless of who leads them, to protect the commons, which is to keep the common folk safe from their leadership, or to unionize and put the people in charge of their own futures. So I'm going to go around and invite you to offer your suggestions as to which one of those you think you'd like as an agenda. And Dave, you feel free to join in on this as well, because whilst you are not starting out as a member of the Rebellion, it's still, will be something you will be engaging with. So.
Ooh. Sorry, my cat was trying to eat my earbuds. I'm interested in protect or unionize, though anarchy could be fun, I'll admit. So
I always like a good union. I'm definitely a fan of unionize. I mean, I'd be down with whatever, but that's the one I'd lean towards.
So could you point me back to the sheet? I'm looking at that again. Sorry.
This is the sheet called Rebellion.
I got you. Yeah.
It's the first bit that's highlighted in yellow.
Got you. Right.
Cool. So yeah, Stephen, any preference from yourself?
Yeah, I suppose unionize is my preference as well.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think that seems fairly unanimous. And I think, yeah, obviously in this context, we can probably, democratize might be a more fitting term almost. But yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, you cool with that as well, Dave?
Yeah, no problem from me.
Awesome. I've put that tick in the box. Cool. So the next thing we have a question on what is the rebellion. This is going to give you I think all of the yeah, that's right. Yeah, all of these. Well, there's one exception, but I think we discussed last time that this is probably one that we're not so interested in, at least at the outset. Which is that there is one of the what is the rebellion moves called in fellowship, which means that the rebellion doesn't have a distinct leader, and that the fellowship as a whole is the leader of the organization. But I think we discussed last time that this probably wasn't something we were interested in. If people have changed their mind, that's cool. But that was my understanding. The other three options are broadly similar, but I will quickly go through them. So we have guerrilla troopers, which means that you are essentially well trained and destructive. Your maximum force is 12. Whenever you would gain force, you gain twice as much, and it gives you an extra option to spend force. There's then insurgents and insiders, which is your rebellion is made up of the Empire's own troops and workers. The rebels have a maximum intel of 12. When they would gain intel, they gain twice as much intel, and you get an additional option for spending intel. And finally, popular support. You can probably guess where this is going, but nobody likes the Empire, and your rebellion has allies everywhere. The rebels have a maximum health of 12, and whenever you would gain health, they gain twice as much health. And this actually gives you an option for spending health as well. So does any one of those appeal to you more?
I think these are all great. I think insurgents and insiders could especially be interesting, given that we already have 2 PCs that are essentially traitors to the Empire, and we also have a nemesis in play.
2.5.
2.5, yes. So that's. I mean, these are all good, I think, but that is the immediate connection I see. So that could be interesting.
I'm drawn more to in fellowship, just because then that means NPCs to interact with more. But just to throw a curveball there, rather than resource management. But I'm not a member of the rebellion, so it has less of an impact on me.
yeah, they're all good. I'm having a hard time choosing.
I can't say I'm a big fan. I can't say I've changed my mind about being a big fan of the in fellowship, not having it, the fellowship itself being the leader doesn't. We are 3 children. It does it doesn't ring true to me.
Queen Glimmer would have something to say about that, but I'm down. I don't have a strong enough opinion, and if Alex doesn't feel that in fellowship works for his view of the game of the world, I'm happy to cede. It's not a problem.
Yep, cool. Stephen, did you have any?
I don't have a really strong opinion on this, so
Yeah, so maybe we can go with insurgents.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. It definitely makes it makes quite. I think it makes. I like the popular support one as well, but I think in some ways insurgents and insiders makes more sense because the rebellion probably isn't because as we discussed previously, the empire is so well established that it probably doesn't make sense for it to be wildly unpopular because
everyone just accepts it as the truth.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So thematically, that probably means like politics and rivalries and those sort of things, and sneakiness around is quite important as a theme in the game.
Yeah, definitely. I think yes, I suppose a lot more of like rather than necessarily going out to liberate places that are already kind of resisting against the empire. It will be more about exposing the dark secrets of the empire and getting people on side and that sort of thing.
Sweet.
Cool.
My feeling with these is often it becomes like our own agenda as players that we've got to we're choosing to lean into.
Yeah. Awesome. So I think that's all of the mechanical choices that we need to for the rebellion. It's relatively light touch, as I say. So the only other couple of bits that we need to detail. So the first thing is the rebellion will need a leader. And incorporating that, we can get a bit more about like what you think the makeup of the rebellion looks like as a whole. And I'll give you a couple of moments to think on that while I mention the other bit. And the second thing we'll be doing is setting up your starting base of operations. This is where the place where the rebellion is currently entrenched. It may be a hidden base. It may just be sort of a town where there is more support for it. However that looks is up to you. I'll just give a brief description on what how sort of the bases of operations work. So essentially, you need to be in a base of operations to most effectively use your rebellion's assets. If you're using them outside of a base of operations, it costs more essentially to use them. And if you want to get in touch with the rebellion, there's actually a role for it to basically have a covert meeting with a representative of the rebellion. If you're outside of a base of operations. You will start off with one base of operations, which again you'll give a bit of detail on in a moment. One of the key sort of aspects of this game is gaining fellowship, which is basically going out and engaging with communities, helping resolve their problems, and sort of bringing them into the rebellion. At the point you bring a community into the rebellion, that community will become a new base of operations, and I will offer you a choice from a set of what they call fellowship moves, which are essentially things that community can bring to the rebellion. And these will kind of build up, and then you'll become, obviously become more powerful. You'll be able to act effectively across more of the empire as you bring more communities under your influence. And that's kind of one of the key thrusts of the game. This idea of building up a coalition rather than just sort of single-handedly taking down the empire kind of thing. So with that said, who do you think currently leads the rebellion? and what do you think sort of more broadly the rebellion looks like? Does anyone have any initial thoughts, or shall I go back and do some form of character keeper based selection?
I mean, I have one or two thoughts. I think I feel like one is either perhaps another member of the Harbingers who for some reason perhaps they come from, perhaps they have like a less showy kind of magic than the one that Phaethon possesses, or also. If we are kind of going with insurgents and insiders, perhaps there's some sort of military leader within the Empire who has been giving the resistance cover from the inside, which is why they haven't been like rooted out by the Imperial authorities just yet. Those are my two thoughts.
Cool. Yeah, no, I like those. Anyone have any either different thoughts or preferences for either of those, or elaborations?
The latter, probably. That whoever it is someone who's in the court of the Moonlit Empire at the moment and is close to the seat of power. Get a code name, and we don't necessarily know who they are.
Ooh, right. Very cool. Like we just get messages.
I think maybe they have a code name, but who they really are, we don't know. That feels like something to uncover during the game on both sides. It gives David some fun.
Yeah, like in Rebels, Star Wars, the cartoon. That's cool. So we need a code name, obviously. That's the important. But yeah, at some point, I like that idea a lot.
Yeah, Alex, that cool with you?
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
Awesome. So yes, the rebellion will be led by an anonymous figure. We said we'll come up with a cool code name, I'm sure. I guess, yeah, sort of feeding off of that, how do you see kind of the initial makeup of the rebellion looking? Do you think it is primarily sort of a military focused thing at the minute, or is it does it represent a more sort of cross-cutting section of society?
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of like different people from all over. It's just that there's a significant number of like military connections and runaway harbingers, but I think overall it's just like bits and pieces because we're all in hiding. We have to keep it secret. Maybe it's to the point where we don't know everyone who's in the rebellion, just out of like a way to keep everyone safe.
Yeah, sort of operating on like a sort of cell basis, that sort of thing. Awesome. So yeah, I'm going to take a couple of quick notes on that.
I was just spending all my time trying to think of like moon puns that we could have as their code name, but I think like, is it maybe Eclipse? Is
I was thinking Eclipse, yeah. Like,
Wow, cool. Yeah, and that sort of has that whole like switching sides kind of feel to it, which is nice.
Nice. That's cool. So that is we've got our leader. What do you think your initial base of operations is going to look like? So I'd say this is somewhere where you have relative safety and can operate effectively out of. Where do you see your first base of operations being? Is it close into the capital, or is it a more remote location where the rebellion's actually able to sort of like physically gather supplies and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking through in my head. Perhaps there's a kind of there's a kind of abandoned logistics depot that the rebellion has converted into a base of operations outside of the capital.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, kind of like somewhere that was like a used as a like I said, a supply depot or something back when the maybe when that particular part of the empire was still expanding, but now that it's been a stable region, it's been.
Yeah, like I'm kind of thinking that it's like just a part of the Empire military that's so old. It's like literally an ancient ruin these days.
Yeah, awesome. I like that.
Very cool.
Crumbling, mossy brick buildings, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Good imagery. I like it. Maybe like an old cathedral.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. I just made a quick note of that. So that's brilliant. That gives us some stuff to work with our rebellion. So what I'm going to do is just going to go around and ask a few quick questions to get some more background stuff on characters, and then we'll take a break. Just remember the specifics I was going to ask. I think actually, I'm just thinking of the best way of asking this because it kind of cuts across both. So I think I know we kind of discussed this briefly last time, but just to get a bit more detail. I will ask Ossian first, but we'll probably follow up with a very similar question to Kalliban. What was it like growing up in sort of the Imperial Palace, growing up as a child of the Empress, or possibly, depending on how you want to set this out, on how recent you want this all to have been, on the possibly just the child of the Crown Princess.
Man, I'm just thinking now. It's like I'm kind of just wondering now in my head, is if like the princes aren't a little bit disposable? Like I'm kind of just wondering like if it's like there's not actually much like there like the crown doesn't actually shift around all that much because empresses tend to live like a couple hundred years and like it only passes along the matrilineal line anyway, but the crown princes are kind of these disposable like fonts of power within the empire. And like you're kind of raised to be these tools of your parent.
Cool. Yeah, I'll just check in. Kalliban, does that sound okay to you?
I'm mostly okay with that. I'll add to it that I think there are five houses and five princes which serve the empress, which are the five phases of the moon. And then you have those who are raised and ordained to take the position, and those who would serve them. So Kalliban was planned initially to be one of the sages and would have served Ossian as his advisor. So just to add that in, that it can be quite a dangerous position to be one of the five princes of the moon.
Yeah, I imagine that certainly with them as well, with the being quite long lived, there's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of politicking and the like.
Like most of the times that an emperor that the crown changes hands, it's usually not by old age. Like it's when we say like most empresses live a couple hundred years, they might be able to live longer. Nobody's just really been able to test it so far.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, no, cool. I like that. So jotting down some notes. Brilliant. Cool. So no, that's cool. I will come back in a moment, but whilst I'm doing so, well, I'm going to move on to Phaethon, and I'm going to do one of the classic, not entirely a question, but so my sort of impression that I was getting, or that I was building up, was this sort of idea of the harbingers being in a role almost like not so explicitly not being a religious organization, except possibly internally. In the sense they might operate in a bit of like a sort of mystery cult type way, but they are not an overt religion, but almost operating in a similar sort of manner to like the Catholic Church in medieval Europe, in that they are not an official arm of the government, but they are a powerful institution that works often in concert with the empire to sort of maintain control.
That all sounds right.
Yeah, cool. That was kind of the impression I got from what we were saying last time, but awesome. So and I guess my question is actually similar, which is I suppose how did Phaethon come to be in the order, and what was it like being sort of brought up and educated there?
I think he was born into it. Or at least that's what he's been told. Either that, or he was like taken as a baby from somewhere. I think it's a very it's an incredibly like strict, austere upbringing. when we were discussing in the Slack, I mentioned how like they're probably like very focused on strict following of like rituals with all these steps, and I imagine that sort of extends to just a very rules focused upbringing for Phaethon.
Yeah, certainly. I can definitely see that sort of like layers of like ritual and sort of and very much like I very much see it being kind of like a hierarchical organization with the sort of like and sort of levels of initiation and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like everything you need to do is already predetermined by like there's no need to or ability to like make actual choices, that sort of thing.
Awesome.
I'm kind of curious. Was there any? Were there any? Because just to throw this out for David as well for ideas for communities in the future. Were there any like formerly prevalent schools of thought in like the harbingers that are now considered like heretical and need to be stamped out?
I'm sort of thinking. Oh, sorry, Alex. Go on.
No, you go first. I was cohering my thoughts anyway.
I was sort of wondering if the harbingers are. I think we sort of maybe established that maybe they're old, and maybe they're even older than the Empire. So, the harbingers are a body of thinking. I mean, what's your view? Are they connected and tolerated in the Empire, or are they themselves an outlawed? I'm thinking like Romans and the Druids, right? That sort of Celtic religion. Are they something that was before and are not tolerated? Depends what Alex is thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are ancient, but they still hold like a lot of influence due to their history with the Empire. Even in the like, and the internal affairs are not really like. They're not public knowledge, and probably not most in the Empire are also not privy to the internal affairs of the Ordo Noctis.
You're the technocrats that keep the Empire running.
Kind of, yeah, basically. Like they're the magic experts. As far as like schools of thought, I imagine like being such an ancient organization, I imagine like it sort of is likely all sort of based around sort of a fundamental idea of like a predetermined outcome for like the world or the universe. And I think the varying schools of thought, various arguments and schisms over the centuries came from differences in thought of how to get there, and how strict, and whether it was the end result is the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter,
right?
Like the steps you take to get there, that sort of thing. That would be something that was probably like stamped out and is absolutely not. That sort of thinking is absolutely not tolerated.
Yeah, but yeah, there may still be like the odd difference in opinion between like. So there may be some like strains of thinking where they say, we shouldn't directly interfere with things. We should merely guide people to make the right things. And then others say, no, we need to go in there and actually physically cause it to happen. But yeah.
I think you also get like a lot of old men bickering over just like their varying interpretations of like very specific details of the great sequence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ends up like, getting into like, intense rivalries and debates.
Yeah.
Over just the most like inane sounding stuff.
when the great seer Zorbo in the year 200 made this prophecy, he said when the first dandelion of spring blooms, but actually the dandelions growing back then were a bit more similar to the daisies today. So
yeah, what does it matter? Like the color of the epaulettes on this one official's uniform. They need to be red. No, they need to be blue. That sort of thing.
Yeah, cool. Excellent. That's cool. I've got some stuff for that. Sabila. So I think actually, I think you kind of answered one of these questions already, but I'll just come back to it. So you mentioned that that your mother's spirit that you kind of have contact with, she is a spirit because she has died. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think the way she died in particular was to harvest what moon magic they could from her, this dragon moon magic, and just take it from her. Sure thing.
So yeah, it was a deliberate act of murder, sacrifice, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, cool. I just wanted to check.
I imagine part of the reason why I wasn't killed by the Empire yet was because, or harvested, was when a dragon reaches a certain age, when their power has hit a certain level, right? It's like Hansel and Gretel. You want to fatten the kids first before you know.
No, that's cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to check whether being a spirit was just a thing that dragons did sometimes, but no, that's cool.
Like if it's a Force ghost thing.
Yeah, exactly. But
yeah. Oh, my Star Wars references.
Yeah.
I would like to think. I do think it's like a Star Wars thing where some dragons can do it, but not all.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I wasn't sure if it was sort of a natural part of the yeah, exactly. Yeah. Words are hard. So it's not part of the natural life cycle, as it were. It's something that sort of has happened as a result of something that's been done. So that's cool. And yeah, I suppose on a related front, what was your upbringing like? Have you sort of had a separate, were you for want of a better word, brought up in a human family, or is it more, or were you sort of brought up by dragons or by a dragon and then integrated into society? How do you think that looked?
Yeah, I think poor Sabila has I don't think they've been alive for very long. I think it's only been a few years. I think they only hatched a few years ago when they first came across Kalliban and stuff like that. But Sarabel doesn't realize it. I think they think oh, I probably just forgot, or I don't know why I don't remember having a family, but I have a mom, so I guess I should have had one. But I think the truth of the matter is they were rescued either by Ossian or someone else in the Fellowship, and they were essentially raised by the Rebellion, I think. And I don't think anyone has had the heart to tell them that things are pretty bad, because it's just Sarabel, their dad, and the Fellowship, basically.
I mean, if you were rescued by a member of the Fellowship, I don't think any of us are old enough to have had you been raised by the Rebellion if we rescued you.
Oh, but I think Sarabel's only been around for a few years,
okay.
Maybe just 4 or 5 years, and then they just look it's
kind of okay. Weird, I was thinking the other way around. Okay, I see now.
Oh, really long lived, and then
yes.
Yeah, I'm still figuring it out. I'm thinking moon time is different from from our time. Like, I'm still not 100% sure which route
You're 12 in human years before in
lunar cycles.
Yeah, it's kind of
yeah.
for sure. Yeah, it's like how a dog is like older, like, but younger in like human years. I guess something like that.
Sure thing. No, that's cool. That's cool.
Are you just gonna be like 1 year older each of the sessions this quarter?
I was thinking that. I was like thinking like it eventually hit this magical girl moment. By the end of the series, Sarah looks like an adult, like an older teenager. I mean, like.
Yeah, cool. No, that's cool. I like that. So no, that's nice. So yeah, so and just to pick up on that again. So you said your father is still around. And again, just because he is a dragon, that's correct, isn't it?
Yeah. I think both my mom and dad were pure dragon, hence. But it was really rare to like reach that age and have a child.
Yep, sure thing. Cool. So. I think I think that's probably enough actually for us to be getting on with. So that's cool. So the last thing I will do just before we take a break is I'll just ask. I have an idea for a kind of initial scene for us to get into, or an initial sequence for us to get into. But is there anything that people have a particular interest in the starting off with? Because I'm definitely open to suggestion, and I can work with what I'm given. Is there a
let's hear your pitch first, and then we can
sure thing. So I mean, yeah, mine was going to be a fairly like go start off with something fairly obvious, and essentially have the three of you rebels having sort of just completed a mission to retrieve some information from somewhere, and sort of trying to make your escape and meet up with the rebellion to pass it on, whilst being pursued by Imperial soldiers, and potential intervention by Kalliban. But yeah, that's I said a fairly sort of obvious, a fairly straightforward in media res. Yeah,
I don't know about other people, but I feel like trying to overcomplicate the opening scene.
Yeah,
we'll have things to build off of in future sessions.
Exactly. Cool. So with that said, we'll call it a 10-minute break now. So come back just after 1:45, and I'll see you all then. I'll just pause this recording. Okay, so welcome back. We will be moving on now with our initial scene. So I guess in terms of like looking at this like a sort of cartoon series, what have you, we can consider the sort of background talk and stuff that we've been doing up until this point as our kind of like opening double episode feature, establishing all the characters and getting them into the position where the action kicks off. So which brings us now to our moment in the where, as I said, we sort of get like an establishing shot of the it's sort of countryside. I'm thinking again, just because I've got that kind of classical mindset in a minute. That it's sort of like scrubby hillsides with maybe a bit of pine forest cresting along the top, as you're making your escape from an Imperial patrol who are hot on your heels. I think we are aware that the you raided. I'm going to say like a sort of like a military relay station type thing, and managed to like escape with some orders and maps and the like that were being sent through the relay station. So I'm going to ask again. I'll break it up in future, but I'll start by going in Couchkeeper Roger again. Ossian, what in specific did the rebellion want from this place? Was there like some specific information that they were looking for?
I guess they were looking for. Yeah, I guess they were looking for like since you kind of brought up that the Empire was looking to expand recently. They were looking for like battle plans of the Empire against neighboring regions that they were hoping, I guess, to that they might be able to use that to rally support against the Empire.
Excellent. That sounds perfect. Sabila, how did what was kind of your group's approach to getting in and getting this information? Did you was this a sort of stealthy operation, or more a kind of kick in the doors and grab what you can?
I think despite Sabila's taste, it was a more stealthy approach. I think we had information from one of our contacts. I think there were some like hilarious hijinks of us stealing uniforms and getting into certain places, but it was mostly stealthy, and Sabila's not happy about it. Sabila wants to like kick some doors down.
Cool. Phaethon, what was it that kind of you obviously you managed to get in and make your escape, but what was it that kind of gave you away and means that you are now being hunted?
Not sure the specifics yet. I imagine it's whatever Phaethon and Sabila are currently bickering about as like we enter this scene. It might have just been like I could see a couple possibilities. Either they like just tripped an alarm system of some sort carelessly, or like Phaethon blew something up.
Or Sabila was just like, I can make magic light, see, and just despite the fact that everybody knows that there's just this magic detection system.
Yeah, like.
Yeah, I like that. Like both Sabila and Phaethon are arguing, no, I can use this magic, and it sets off the magic detection.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's like, no, my light is going to be better for this situation, see?
And everyone's ignoring poor Ossian, who is trying to tell us to be careful.
Perfect. And Kalliban, what are the I'm trying to phrase that in a sensible way. What are the what is the Fellowship not aware of that makes this situation more serious than they first realized? Or that you know,
they haven't stolen our attack plans. They've stolen defensive plans. We were about to be under attack, and thousands are now at risk.
Excellent. Cool. So, as I say, I think you're you've been making your getaway for a little bit now, and you're as I said, you're kind of in this like hillside a little bit from the road where the relay station was. There is a group of uniformed soldiers. They're clearly doing that sort of thing where they're like spread out a little bit, but still quite relatively close to each other, sort of scouring the hillsides for you, and but you will notice they are joined by another individual who's also wearing uniform, though they've got that they've got kind of, whereas the others are all in the sort of box standard guardsmen's outfits. This person is has a sort of a different has a sort of more has more equipment on them in general. They've got patches of armor and sort of that sort of padding over them. They have a number of different weapons, including a kind of quite a powerful looking harpoon gun slung over their back, and they are scouring the hillside with a pair of binoculars, and it is clear that they know what they're looking for. They are good at this, and escaping them is going to be difficult. So for what we're basically looking at in this scene is to see sort of how we managed to escape this patrol. So yeah, what do you do?
How many are they?
So there's about three. There's about three soldiers down there, and the elite soldier, who we'll call them for the moment. So the way I'll just do a very brief introduction on how units work in this essentially. So when you fight against NPCs, they work. They're a bit like companions. They all have stats, which. And some of their stats have specific moves linked to them that allow them to do certain things or put certain restrictions on them. The way you take out a threat is by damaging one of their stats, which is primarily done through the take them out move. It's one of the basic moves, which it does require you to first set up an advantage of some description, which can be purely fictional. It doesn't have to be a mechanical thing. That can also be a mechanical thing. For instance, if there's a way you could bring one of your companions in to create an advantage, you can do so. Some other moves also let you kind of create advantages for other players and the like. So that's broadly how that works. So when you damage them, they are taken out of commission. when you damage the stats are taken out of commission. With a group of people, they are usually about 3 people. Is considered a group. It may be a few more than that. And what that means is that they still effectively act as one individual, but they can target up to 2 people when they make a move, and you need to kind of say to do certain moves on them. You need to at least have 2 other people engaging them to kind of keep them all controlled. That they and you can damage their stat twice before they're destroyed. Once they're destroyed, they then become 2 individuals, and then you can take those out. There are bigger increments of people as well. So once you get up to 30, it's a gang. But well, that's not relevant right now. But yes, that's so. But that's the sort of situation that you are currently in.
Yeah, I think Sabila will, as usual, act first, think later. So, as an attempt to, I think what Sabila is trying to do is like distract them so that the rest can escape.
Sure thing. So I'm going to quickly check on the basic moves because I still haven't internalized all of these yet.
This is keep them busy.
This definitely sounds like keep them busy. Yep.
Plus courage.
Plus courage. And so the way this so as I just mentioned, to actually, because the group is because you're dealing with a group, in order to completely occupy them, you would need to have someone else helping you, which someone else is willing to do so if they so choose, or if you have some other way of kind of increasing your scale on this. But that will be fine, because what that will mean is that even if you don't, you'll still kind of have occupied half of them, so that the other half will be we'll only be able to take one other thing. But yeah, we can just start with the roll. If you'd like to roll with courage.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll just keep it simple for now. I'm like looking at all these moves. I'm like, I'll just keep it simple. So I got a 7 + 2, 9. So let me read it. On a 9, on keep them busy. And it's a different set of anyway. Okay.
Yes, the way they phrase stuff is a little different than some games. It's so
on a 9 and lower. So technically, I hit the. They will retaliate against you when time is up.
Yep. Yep, sure thing. So so how does this look when you cause this distraction?
Yeah, I think Sabila gives off this smile, and their tattoos start to glow a little bit. This deep, dark red color, as that I can't get over the anime, because like their armor is their blazing soul enveloping them in protective fire, and I think that's kind of what it looks like. They just throw themselves into the fray and just start yelling like it's incoherent, like just to get their attention. And like when a Komodo dragon like puts out to make themselves look bigger and meaner, that's kind of what Sabila's doing.
Excellent. That's perfect. So yeah, and I think the group of soldiers will notice you. Obviously, I mean, so everyone will notice you, but the group of soldiers will start running towards you. It's going to take them a little bit to get up to you, but that you've definitely got their attention. They are coming directly for you, with intent to bring you down. But at this moment, we're going to get one of those quick flashes to the to the elite soldier down on the ground, and you just see a grin break out across his face and says, "Finally, I've been looking forward to this." We pan down and we see that around his neck, he's wearing a necklace of long, sharp reptilian teeth. As he brings the harpoon gun and starts to take a bead on Sabila.
So good, so good.
Awesome. So, does someone want to jump in at this point? Okay.
So do we see the elite soldier?
Oh yeah, you can definitely see that he's definitely also noticed, and yeah, whereas the other soldiers have just like I said, have started running towards him, you can see that he's, like I said, got this big harpoon gun, and he is aiming it at Sabila. You can clearly see that.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I want to push the elite soldier from far away using my wizardry.
Certainly. Oh, sorry. I should have. I should have also mentioned the stats that each of the groups. Well, everyone has. So the soldiers just have the stat loyal to a fault, the standard Imperial soldier stat. Though, as I say, they can mark that twice because they are currently a group. The elite soldier has the stats. Well prepared, favored enemy, and the greatest challenge. But yes, so with your wizardry, that is not a roll, is it? I believe, or is it a?
Wizardry does not.
Yeah.
It just says touch, push, or grab. It was if you were somewhere else you can see.
Yep, sure thing. So yeah, oh yeah, no, sorry, that's cool. So yeah, I think what that will be then is I will let you make a frantically switching between tabs. I will let you make a overcome. That's what it's called. Sorry.
Oh, good. That's yeah.
When you attempt to avoid, redirect, or prevent the harm something will cause.
I have a -1 in blood. I notice everybody else took like a good blood stat.
That's okay. We're here to help you.
Well, that's a 10.
Nice. Is that nice? Is that not
awesome?
Nice? It's nice, right?
No, that's great.
That's
I'm still getting used to.
So on a 10 plus, you stop the obstacle threat or move from causing harm. So yeah, I think as he raises this this harpoon gun and takes aim, you like give like a shove to him. The harpoon fires, and but it's way off course, and it thunks into the ground, burying quite deeply. And at that point, he just drops the harpoon gun because it's not going to be worth his effort to try and retrieve the bolt from it. And he starts charging up the hill after the rest of the soldiers. He pulls from his back one of those, these it's like a sort of pole army type thing that almost has like the two hooks around it. It's used for sort of like grappling and holding people down, almost like those things they use for like unsurprisingly, given its usage, those things they use for like capturing animals with sort of the little loop things. And he begins to charge up after his men. So yes, what do you do next?
So where are these men in relation to us?
So they are a little bit further down the hill at the minute, but they are getting much closer. They're almost within range of striking at Sabila now. The elite soldier is a little bit behind them as he got a slightly slower start, though is, obviously seems a lot more competent and is gaining ground fast.
Right.
And did you say there was they split off into two groups, and one of them is?
No, they are now
Sabila,
basically all making a beeline towards Sabila. There's the group of soldiers and the elite are all charging in their direction.
Yeah. And I guess I'd want to put this off until a little bit later, but Sabila's in danger, so I think I like rush ahead of you, Sabila, and I like take out my blade and I slide it along my hand, and I'm damaging my blood stat in order to activate my move. Where do I mark? Okay, yeah, I can mark it there. In order to activate my core exile move as the traitor. When you have an elemental form that you can take on when you must. Describe it. When you wish to transform, you must damage your blood stat. But while I'm in this form, I never roll with despair when rolling blood or grace. Yeah, and I think that I kind of let out this bestial howl, and I'm kind of consumed by light, and I think as the light kind of abates, almost like a flashbang, there's this massive wolf of light standing before Sabila. And I kind of am imagining a little bit there are these kind of streamers that look a little bit like Yogi magic scrolls, streaming off of his back.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think if you because I think this currently makes you very large, I believe, as well.
Yeah.
So,
what does the giant tag mean? It's not in the core tag list.
Yeah, I think it's in the it's actually added in Rebellion, I think. But basically, what it means is that you are able to you're able to affect you are, I mean, you're physically bigger, but you're also able to affect up to 3 people at once, which basically means that you can take on a group of people on even footing, essentially, because you're big enough that you can occupy them all at once.
Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, and I think as well that's probably I think that the your sudden transformation is definitely going to give you an advantage over the squad if you want to try and finish them. You don't have to. It's depending on what your kind of what your aim with this maneuver is, but yeah, that's certainly the option. You definitely have a position of strength over them at the moment.
Looking at my stat lines here. No, it's okay. It said I was muted. I am just looking at my stat lines here. I guess Yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to make this jump in. I know that it is. I mean, I have to protect these two. I'm gonna have to like jump in and I guess engage with Tooth and Claw. Or sorry, I'm just looking through all the moves here. Just trying to make sense of everything.
Yeah, I know it's a lot, but I think we'll just get used to it over time.
Okay, actually no. I'm probably not really by trying to kill these guys. I'm trying to force them into a retreat, which I see is rolling plus courage.
Yep,
That's
correct.
more what I'm going with here.
Sure thing. Yeah, that's great.
But that is still only 4.
A 4. Okay.
No.
So yeah, I think that you.
And this is when Kalliban shows up.
Oh no. Oh, do we mark XP and a miss? Sorry, just asking.
No, there's no XP
no.
in this game.
Yeah, that's correct. It's
Okay.
advancements handled slightly differently. We'll get to that at the. It has
Sure.
like an end of session move essentially, but yes. So I think what this is going to look like. I think it's quite straightforward. Is that like even though these soldiers are taken aback by your sudden transformation and as you come towards them, they are just regular soldiers, but they've got some backbone, and they pull their spears and ready them, and as you come to them, even through your sort of enhanced power, they are able to keep you at bay, prodding you back with the spears. You will take damage, which you can choose which stat that affects. But you may, if you wish and you have it, you may also cross off a use of armor to ignore the damage.
I have literally no armor, so I'm gonna check off race because might as well. It's my other stat that it doesn't matter if it's damaged right now.
Sure thing. So yeah, they you're still occupying them. They're charged towards Sabila has very much been impeded, but the hunter is kind of able to make a dash around you as the men occupy you. But we are going to switch away for a moment to an austere office, clearly military in nature, and where Kalliban is in discussion with the legate Drusilla Corax. And obviously whether this is happening at exactly the same time or whether this is more in nature of a flashback, we're not going to know immediately yet, but the legate will give a short, though not insultingly so, bow, and say, Your Highness, I had heard word that you were in the area. Might I assume that you are here in search of the runaway?
It doesn't even make eye contact to her, and sort of looking down into a pool of water and says, I didn't realize that officers of the Imperium had started making decisions through assumption, like it. why I'm here and not here is hardly yours to question, just yours to do. And the bow was weak and pitiful, so he extends out his dark, shadowy hand and a silver ring, expecting proper acknowledgement of his rank and position.
I apologize for any insult I have caused you, Your Highness. And she will bow down to you and kiss the ring before straightening back up again. My people have been searching for these rebels. We believe we have narrowed down the area. Their capture is only a matter of time. If you wish to assist us in this endeavor, I am sure your skills will be most useful to us.
I'll stand and sort of walk behind her close. Oh, Drusilla, do you need my assistance? Are you asking for help?
I would not. I would not. What's the word I'm looking for? I would not. Complete memory blank. Yeah, I would not wish to impose upon someone of your stature, my prince. This task has been granted to me directly by the Empress herself. Long may she reign, and I have every intent and capability to see that the job is done and done well. If, however, you wish to be involved, then I would say we can achieve more working together than at separate ends.
Kalliban pours a glass of wine and sits on the big a chair across from her, which should be her chair and her desk, and puts his feet on the desk, black shadow sort of swishing around him, and takes a sip of the wine, smiles and says, well, if you're in control, dear Drusilla, then I don't think you need me, unless you do. Just ask for help when the time comes. I would like to see how you perform, and so would the Empress. Oh, a small little instruction from me. The outcast is to be brought in alive, as is the horned creature. As for the man, do what you wish. Kill him. Irrelevant to me.
Understood.
Drinks the wine and says, oh, God, is this what we're counting for wine out here now? I'll be sure to send you from the Imperial stock.
That is most kind of you, Your Highness. I tend to drink with my troops, but of course, a little indulgence is never is never unwelcome.
Kalliban takes a mouthful of the wine and remembers family meals with his brother, and puts the glass of wine down on the table and says, now, let's see how well you've trained your troops, shall we?
Of course, Your Highness, I will arrange for an inspection if you so wish. I'm just going to have...
No, I think you are misunderstanding me. And he just wishes his hand around in the wine, and it sort of, I think, goes up into the air, and we can see the battlefield. It says, let's see how well you have trained the troops that you have sent out after the rebels to the Empire. And let's hope those plans will return. Lives may depend upon it.
Cool. Okay, and I think we'll switch back for the moment. If you feel like you want to make one of the two sort of like interactive type moves, so either talk softly or what's it called? Look closely. We can come back to that in a moment. But yeah, I think we will switch back to the action. Yes. So just to refresh everyone, and as we see this through the shadowy figures moving within the wine, we see, as I say, we've got Ossian in elemental form engaging the foot soldiers. They're having a bit of a back and forth. Arguably, Ossian is on the back foot, but not to any great degree. They're still in a sort of fairly commanding position. They certainly have the attention of those soldiers. The hunter is stalking. Well, he's sort of maneuvering around. He has this thing. He has locked eyes with Sabila and is making a move to strike. So what do you do?
Ooh, I think when I see the dragon teeth, like now that it's closer, yeah, that's really upsetting. So I think I'm definitely going to try to outright attack. I think that makes the most sense. I'm going to use my poison in particular, I think.
Sure thing. Sure thing.
Is that an overcome or is that a?
Yeah, I think that is. I think that is an overcome. As I think you're trying to basically, keep him. Not keep him occupied, but yeah. What's the word? You're trying to sort of pin him down and stop him from being able to act. So. If you would like to make a roll with blood.
Roll plus blood. Okay.
And you will, I'm afraid, also have to pay a price to act against him.
Ooh.
So this basically means that you... Actually, that makes sense because, you said you were thinking of using your poison anyway. So I think that probably makes sense. Essentially, you will have to use... You'll notice that his armor is particularly well. He's got good armor on, and you can tell that the reinforcing is obviously like some form of fireproof material. He has clearly come loaded for dragons. But yeah, you're able to use if you use the poison, that will essentially count as your cost for being able to engage him. This is due to one of his moves. Basically, I will tell you now that you actually interacted with it. His favored enemy move means that he's particularly dangerous against dragons, and dragons and other dragon-like creatures must pay a price before they can make a move against the dragon slayer. So you're sort of essentially using your poison breath on him will count as that for the purposes of this move.
Ooh, awesome! I like. Okay, so I'm rolling with blood to. Okay, here we go. Rolling. Did it change? Okay, yeah. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Nice.
So
nice.
On a 10 plus, you stop the obstacle, thread, cut, or move from causing harm. Ooh, cool.
Yeah. So how does that look as you're going to get a strong position against him? But tell us how that looks as you come in.
Yeah, I think what happens is the horns on my head start to glow with this sickly green fire as I reach out and grab him, and it's like the poison's coming from my body, from the tattoos, and I'm like searing through the armor trying to get to him. And but I think I'm also trying to grab the necklace. Does that make sense? Like, I'm so upset that he has it, this trophy.
Yeah, and I think you can definitely grab that and pull it from him, and either keep hold of it or it drops to the floor.
Would you say this scenario counts as an advantage?
Absolutely, yep, absolutely.
Okay. I mean, I want to knock the guy out. Basically, I think. I mean, I can roll first, or I can describe it. I don't know. Which,
Yeah, no. So yeah, so tell us how this looks, and then we can, as you start it anyway, and we'll.
I think like Phaethon uses his wizardry again to just like remote pick up a rock near where the hunter and Sabila are fighting, and it's just gonna, bop him over the head with it.
Awesome. Yep. Oh yes, that's a Bond moves. That's a good mention. This is absolutely going to. Yep. So because Ossian and Sabila, sorry, not Ossian and Sabila, because you can tell it's one of those days. Because Phaethon and Sabila have bonds with each other, and you're both essentially at the moment working on you're both working together on this because Sabila is keeping the hunter occupied whilst you're delivering the attack. You will be rolling with hope, which is to say from other systems what you might know as advantage. So you will be rolling with 3 dice and keeping the highest 2.
Okay.
If you don't have bonds with each other when you're both working on the same thing, you'll instead roll with despair because you get in each other's way and complicate things. But
wow, oh my gosh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm trying to knock him out, which my sense is good, right? I have 1 sense. Okay. That is an 11.
Okay,
Ooh.
so on an 11 on take them out. So this, as I say, this moved exactly the ultimate outcome of this is dependent on what stat you roll with. So when you finish them by, as you say, by disabling them or knocking them out, you roll with sense. On a 10 plus, they are physically incapacitated and unable to continue. So yes, you will strike him over the head with this rock, and he will just do that thing where he looks just surprised for a moment and then collapses onto the ground. Awesome. So
yeah, and I think when that happens, Sabila will be like, "Oh, Phaethon, of course you saved me." Like, so this is just further proof that the two of you are meant to be in their eyes.
Yeah, Phaethon just does the sort of like anime, like turn his head to the side.
So cute.
Okay, so I think, and I think that that's definitely going to count as forge a bond. Although actually, that I don't think that will have an effect, sadly, because it's your thing works both ways, doesn't it, Phaethon?
Yeah, people can only have 1 bond with me, and I can only have 1 bond with them.
That is a good example of when you would forge a bond with somebody by just sort of sharing a moment with them, except Phaethon's angst gets in the way. So cool. So Ossian, how are things going with you? As I say, you're the kind of the soldiers that you've engaged with have kind of taken back the initiative, but they're not overpowering you yet. Though they are kind of like they've managed to get into a more like effective position against you. They're starting to circle around. They've got their shields raised.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that as I am like surrounded by all sides, we see like a little ball of black fur pop out from my fur and just kind of leap out onto one of these soldiers' heads. And then like they just all like start trying to get at it, and they all just like fall apart in their
Yeah.
in their thing, their formation. And I'm going to I'm not erase, but damage Shadow's adorable distraction stat.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that's excellent. So yeah, you as I mentioned, yeah, with companions you can erase damage one of their stats, should say, yeah, to have them cause some sort of advantage, which yeah, this absolutely is. If ever they have, if they're ever unable, so you can't choose to damage their stat if it's already damaged and they're not in a group. But if you would ever be forced to damage a stat by an enemy attack or whatever, and you can't damage one, then you lose bonds with them instead. When you have no bonds, then they're they fade into the background or leave the fellowship, depending. But that's cool. So yeah, the soldiers are this has completely thrown them. They're not sure what it is. They perhaps this is some sort of strange demon that has been unleashed upon them, and they're kind of like trying to grab it and stop it as it's darting about. But yes, you definitely have an advantage over them now if you wish to press it.
I'm sure this is just this is exactly what the legate wanted Kalliban to be seeing. But yeah, I'm gonna take advantage of this distraction to try to crash into their formation, and I feel like I'm still trying to force them to retreat. I'm definitely not trying to kill these people, but yeah, I feel like I'm trying to finish them here with courage. Like I'm trying to nip at them, further break their formation, and hopefully this time it will go better. And it did not. Oh no. Okay. Yes. Yes, it did.
Cool. Yeah.
Did it go better?
Yeah, it did. It's this weird thing with roll for your party where like the die like fall on a number and then suddenly change again.
I know they added that feature and I hate it.
I don't think they added it. I think it's just like broken.
Oh really? Okay. All right.
Cool. It's actually stopped working for me at all. Anyway, I think it's timed out and isn't letting me back in. But anyway, that's beside the point.
I got 7 though, so I did actually accomplish something this time.
I should also point out you do get to roll an additional dice because you have a bond with your companions. So I think that counts as far as I'm concerned. And technically,
no, it's when 2 or more players.
Oh, 2 or more players. Sorry, no, that's okay. Fine. But yeah, if someone,
unless your giant is still giving you does the giant thing give advantage?
The giant lets me deal with these guys as a group more easily than if I was like just a singleton.
Okay, nice, very cool.
Like otherwise, I might have some trouble dealing with the whole unit myself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's cool. So yeah, on a 7 to 9, you will damage their stat. Well, you will damage a stat, but in their instance, they only have 1. So
yeah, which is being the group.
Yeah. So yeah, you will. Yeah, you will take that. You'll take that down. And I think to be honest, that is probably will probably I will probably let you just finish off the rest of them now, because there's now you now outnumber them and they are essentially mooks. So or at least in mechanical terms, you now outnumber them and they are essentially mooks. I think that with that, the rest of you are able to join in and push these soldiers back. and they will make their escape while the getting is good. So with I think we will wrap up that particular scene. So what I would like to do is just get a little like vignette from each of you as you're kind of making your way back to your contacts. We'll then flash back to our estimable Kalliban as they deal with as they deal with whatever they wish to do. Then we'll wrap up and go to our end of session questions. So I'm going to go in reverse order this time to keep you on your toes. Almost reverse order. I will start. Phaethon, what do we see from Phaethon as you kind of? I mean, this can be anywhere from the kind of the leaving that battle to like handing over the information to your contact or anything in between.
I think it's like just like pretty soon after this skirmish, as they're just heading back, and with Jamie's permission, Sabila's probably bothering Phaethon, and
I was gonna suggest that, complete
with
trying to hug, and he keeps moving out of the way.
Yeah, he moves out of the way, and I think like there's a shot of like it like zooms in on like he's just kind of looking straight ahead, and it zooms in on his face, and he closes his eyes, and like some images flash, and he's like envisioning possible future paths. Or something to that effect. Mostly just trying not to be present in the moment.
Brilliant. Yeah, and I mean we've kind of got a little bit of Sabila there, but yeah, what else do we see of Sabila as they are making their return from this successful mission?
Yeah, I think Sabila is like excitedly talking to everybody, but mostly to themselves. Like, wow, Ossian, you got like real big, and then there was a roar, and wow, it was so cool. Like just going on, and like, and then that rock, like all these sound effects. But I think what Sabila is trying to hide from everyone, which I don't think they're doing too well, so anyone can see it if they want to, is they did pick up the dragon teeth and they did set it aside, but they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do with it.
Phaethon absolutely does not notice.
Brilliant, thank you. And Ossian, what do we see of you?
I'm just like wrapping a little bandage around Shadow's paw. She didn't like actually get hurt by any of the soldiers. She just accidentally like got a thorn in it, like independent of anything that was happening in the fight. Yeah, and I'm just as an aside, I am healing her for one harm, which actually also heals me because of my move.
Nice.
Cool.
That's perfect.
I have one more thing. Sorry, yeah. Which is just I feel like like after the credits for the episode roll, and there's like the little sting, the Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon or whatever, and you just get like a little black and white animation of like Shadow like batting at the iBat. that's just the little animation that plays at the end of every episode.
Nice.
So cute.
Nice. I like it. And now background to Kalliban. Any parting shots from you, or as I say, if you wish to like get any information out of the legate, then feel free to sort of continue that.
So we see Kalliban sort of puts down the wine, sort of falls back into the goblet, and looks to the legate and says, "Oops, that didn't seem to go so well, legate."
I was not aware the runaways' powers were quite so unusual. This certainly bears greater caution in future.
You're traveling with. You're traveling. Did you not notice the exile Ossian, who was ordained to be the Prince of the Moon before me? Leans forward and looks at her and whispers into her ear, "I wasn't born to wear this crown, but I will fulfill its obligations in a way that my cowardly brother never could."
And
now, shall we begin? And I'm going to speak harshly to them, I think, at this point. Because
certainly.
The Nemesis does not speak softly.
Yes, I'd forgotten that.
They speak harshly instead, and they speak with iron in a slightly intimidating way. So my iron is 2. So that's a 9, so that'll be 11.
Perfect. So I think, you get 2 questions from the list and they have to answer honestly.
I want to know what are they hiding from me?
Okay, so what they are, this is, and I mean, this is, I will sort of give you that as a thing. This is not something that they are like expressly hiding from you per se, but it is definitely something that is of relevance to you in particular. The legate, she is, you know that she clearly respects your position and your role, and she definitely, what you pick up on is that she, when you said about your kind of obligation, your duty to do this, you can absolutely tell that she absolutely respected you for that. She holds what you will get from her, what she is in effect hiding. She has a lot of respect for the Empire as an institution and for the obedience to, your superiors and all of that sort of thing. She has absolutely no personal loyalty to your mother. Her loyalty is entirely based in the position she holds. There's no sort of personal connection there. What I will in fact read out her stats to you. When I pick them up, she is her stats are honor bound. Sorry, no, it's not honor bound. It's something slightly different than that, but honor bound will do. It's more or less the same thing. Mercy and unrelenting. She is very much. She will absolutely do her duty, but that is as far as her loyalties to the Empire goes. She has a sort of her own personal code of honor that is more important to her. It's potentially why she was picked. It's one of those double-edged swords where it's potentially the reason that she was picked for this job. It's also potentially a reason why she may not have been a good person to pick for this job.
So, as we're playing in the Rebellion setting as an Empire, I get one of the leadership moves as well.
Oh yes, you do. I have put a little thing on your sheet down just underneath your cause for you to choose one there. But yeah.
So I'm going to choose Aloof Mastermind. You always have a trap set up in the location you are in when you move to a new place. So I think the point that Kalliban smiles and this sort of black empty grin as the light of the moon flickers in his eyes, and it says, "Now, let's see how we do when we don't use brute force. They won't know what's coming for them." And I suppose that will do as a closing line.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, so what we're going to do is, as I say, we have some end of session moves, which we will go to. Well, I say an end of session move, which is a case for some questions I will ask you all. I've put these, I think, on the Rebellion tab because it made as much sense as anywhere else. So the first question that I have to ask you is, did we strike a blow against the Empire or its leaders?
Minor blow. I mean,
we embarrassed someone.
And we did very much embarrass them.
Yeah, no, yeah, I absolutely.
We did get away with the plans, but yeah.
Exactly. Did
Plans,
you?
though, might be like another question.
Yeah. So, did we protect the common folk from harm?
Based on what Kalliban revealed about the plans, probably the opposite.
Yeah, we'll definitely see on that front. But yes, the in general, yeah, I'd say that's probably just because of the nature of what we did today, there wasn't much chance
also,
for
there really wasn't
interaction.
any situation where it came up.
Exactly. And finally, did we learn something new about the Empire and its plans?
I'm a little bit torn because I feel like we haven't really delved into what's actually in these plans. But if like you view like getting the plans is what the question means, I guess yes.
Yeah, I'd say I think that we did learn some stuff about learned something new about the Empire today.
I think it was Caliban's plans that they should be given these plans and have to make a choice of either to support the Empire or see thousands die. Was his plan all along?
Yeah, that sounds good. But yeah, I'm also happy to give a yes on that one. So you get 2 choices from the following list, and you can choose the same thing twice. Or 3 times if you've answered all 3 questions. So the first one is that each player refreshes 1 piece of their gear to its full value. Each player chooses 1 stat to heal, does not have to be theirs. Or the Fellowship and the Empire each choose 1 player to level up.
And just for the last one, everybody has to be picked once before you can get another level up. So the Empire's only going to be able to pick themselves once. Just to clarify
exactly,
that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm personally, like, there's only 1 person, myself, who actually has an injured stat. And I think only 2 of us actually have any gear that's actually needs to be refreshed at all.
Yeah, I'd say that probably in this case, picking the advance twice is probably the sensible call. But it is your choice to make.
So is that like the Fellowship chooses 1, or each person in the Fellowship?
The Fellowship overall choose 1.
Okay, that makes sense.
So like presumably we would pick 2 of us who are not the Empire and the Nemesis.
Yeah.
Where presumably the Empire is going to pick themselves and the Nemesis.
Yeah. Actually, in this instance, because it will be, I will pick one of you and Dave to bring up to all 4 because the Empire doesn't level up in quite the same way as the Overlord does.
Okay.
So yeah. So basically, everyone will get a level. Is what that means, which is just a fancy way of saying you'll get to tick an advance, and you can increment up your level box if that makes you feel happy.
It does make me feel happy.
Exactly, that's what it's there for.
Number go up.
So you don't have to do that, the actual leveling right now if you want to give some thought to it. But so thank you very much everyone for playing. I'm going to end the recording here. I will do a quick stars and wishes off camera. Well, let's say off camera, off recording. If you have been watching this, thank you very much for doing so. And thanks very much everyone for playing.